Hello, everybody. This is Man Alone. Wow, that was quite a swing there. Hello. Welcome to the Man Alone YouTube channel where we talk solo RPGs. And today we're going to talk about a game that's not necessarily a solo RPG. Well, it's not. However, I think it's one that is very soloable and does not get enough love on this channel, and that's got to change. It is an amazing game and an excellent relief from overcomplicated tabletop role-playing games. Now, look, that part of the appeal of tabletop is getting into the lore, getting into the backstories, linking those all together, and it's fun. It's fun to get a new book and read everything and immerse yourself. But not gonna lie, as a GM and as a solo player, it can be pretty taxing. After a while, I have been trying to make a video on Pendragon by Chaosium. What looks to be an amazing game. However, every time I sit down to make a video and open it up and start paging through it, I go, wow, I've got a long way to go before I'm able to be able to competently talk about this game, right? Because especially as a GM, you need to read the book, right? And it's like reading a 330-page book at times. And so it's part of the fun, but at the same time, it can get, you could have burnout periods where you're just like, can I just have a game that I can open it up and get going with it right away? Most of the options for games like that are quite sparse, right? They're not going to have a lot of options. They're not going to have a lot of lore. They're going to expect you to fill in a lot of those blanks. And so I feel that this is a game that hits right in the sweet spot where it is minimalist enough so that it is extremely easy to swallow, digest, metabolize, and I guess excrete. But it is not so sparse as to make you feel like you've gotten ripped off. If you ever paid like a, what's a solo journaling game go for these days? About $30 for a 4-page book, and they have 3 or 4 words per page. And you go, well, it kind of feels like I'm not getting much content here. And so this is a game that is going to make you feel like you got your money's worth on many, many different axes. But perhaps most of all, it will be in its simplicity. And having said all that, you should know by now that I am clearly not talking about Ultraviolet Grasslands. I am talking about Into the Odd, which I would say shares some lineage with UVG, and I don't want to pick on Ultraviolet Grasslands because it's a damn work of art, okay? This game is a miracle. Like, it looks like a miracle should look, but my God, this is the inside cover. Here's like just some quick resources here. You want to learn how to play, just follow the arrows, and yeah, we'll see you in about 6 months. Let us know if you need any food or water. Yeah, this is also not the only one, right? In the back cover as well. Now, these are a little bit less common stuff that you're going to see here, but still, it's like when I saw this, it was kind of that feeling when we had to read Sound and the Fury and AP Lit in high school. And I don't know if anyone is old enough to remember Cliff's Notes, but they were basically these summaries that you could get of different books. And for some reason, they looked like biohazard signs or something. But anyways, the Cliff's Notes was the summary if maybe you forgot to read the book you were assigned. And the Cliff's Notes for Sound and the Fury by Faulkner was like 180 pages. So we were like, dear God, if this is a Cliff's Notes, what's that book like? I'll tell you what it's like. It's one of the greatest American books ever written, but that's beside the point. So when you see this, you're like, oh my gosh, what does the actual game look like? Now, again, I am not actually trying to talk smack here about UVG. It's a completely different experience, and It is just an incredible, incredible book. And it has very unique systems, but the real intrigue, I would say, in this game is the level of specificity. Almost on every page, there's going to be lists, there's going to be tables that you can roll on, there's going to be backstory setting, there's going to be stuff that engrosses you, enriches you in this setting without there being too definitive of a story. It kind of it allows you to travel around and understand the story of this place rather than to have a linear A to B experience. And as Geek Gamer said, it is a sort of, treasure trove of different tables and stuff for solo role players. What I will say, as just a counterpoint to that, not to fully disagree. I think there's plenty of stuff in here, but just in case you're like feeling that weird FOMO of like, oh, solo RPG YouTuber said I got to get this. Like, I will say that this book's quite expensive, and also that a lot of the tables in this are very interesting. They're also hyper specific. So I think as a solo role player, they're going to be often more than you need. For instance, if I'm playing some sword and sorcery game and I'm like, okay, I just got an upgrade. Let's see, what upgrade did I get? Well, let's roll on it. Let's roll on a table here. Okay, I got a biomantic omen. Oh, a chromomorphic map on my skin filled with synthetic antiviral factors and encapsulated in an extra organ I didn't know I had. And I guess I'm reading that information on a recessive biooptics HUD display that I now have in my field of vision. And suddenly your sword and sorcery game becomes Blade Runner. So, it is a unique setting of a sort of psychedelic, not retro future, alternative future. It's its own thing, and this video is not about UVG, but I just wanted to give it its due because I did use it for a little bit of a bit here, and the Rosetta system that it uses is a good game system, and there are certainly worse offenders about overload in games, which we will name some of those. Okay, I can't find anywhere to put it. There we go. Okay, Into the Odd. It is rules and writing by Chris McDowell and graphic design and art by Johan Noor, who does Mork Borg. And I would say that this game is going to give you everything that Mork Borg gives you, but it's going to be less inscrutable, or it's going to be scrutable, I guess. And it clocks at about 140 pages, and it's a power punch. It's got a lot of energy, a lot of definitive spirit in it. So it doesn't mean that it's extremely dense. In fact, it is not extremely dense. It's quite minimalist, but not so minimalist that you feel like you're getting ripped off, like a game that you buy and it has 3 words per page. All right, this game has everything you need and not much else. And that is actually that is part of like a good game creation effort. One that I am still struggling to learn more and more is that, as often as we can say, wow, this book really doesn't have much. I feel like I saw this whole thread on Reddit the other day that like OSR games are just using the OSR title as an excuse to sort of under-deliver and give sort of bare bones mechanics and lack of lore and then sell it at a higher price. You're definitely not going to get that feeling from Into the Odd because it just feels so complete. And again, it has everything you need and nothing you don't. Now, there is a more elaborate version of it. It's not a sequel, but it's more built out. This was a Free League publishing title, but it was co-whatever by Bastionland Press in the same way that Mork Borg was like Free League plus Stockholm Cartel. this additional game uh, called Electric Bastion Land Deeper into the Odd is the same game, but it's built out more. And again, I think if you're really into the odd, this can be a really really cool additional resource for you. But I also want to say that I wouldn't call it like necessary. There is a free version that is available on the website that is 42 pages, and again, the full version is like 300 plus pages. But as far as like for my money, what I'm looking to do with solo play, this free version PDF has almost everything you need, and it is going to have 100 full illustrated failed careers in the full version. Like failed careers is like role or archetype. I don't need that many, right? Like again, if I was really really into this game, I'd be like, "Oh, that's so awesome." It has about 10 in here as exemplars. I think that's great. And it has a rules summary and examples of play and playing the game, and some of this stuff like equipment and some combat mechanics is a little more fleshed out. Um, so yeah, I would honestly, if you haven't played before, it might feel like the right thing to do to get Electric Bastion Land, because you're like, oh, this is like the most developed version of this. And I would say that I would recommend starting with Into the Odd, because it's like very special. It's a very special book. You could tell. It was the same feeling that I got with Into the Odd that I got when I brought home Morkborg, right? Like it is the same kind of thing where people will pull it off the shelf and be like, wow, like this is a special book, like this. I wish I read books like this. Like even if they're not a tabletop player, they're like, this is like really cool. This has so much interesting stuff. Let me adjust the mic. So, that is kind of, before I go further into that, that's where I want to start, is just by talking about, and I actually made some chapters here. So the first chapter is why Into the Odd is awesome. And I also want to say this bookmark that I found at a used bookstore is also really awesome. And if anyone knows this person, that'd be incredible. But on the back of this bookmark is an obituary. Orville Sinnott. So, if anyone from Orville's family sees this video, please let us know why you chose to make a bookmark. I think that was an awesome choice. I definitely think that this is a great way to memorialize somebody, because you literally will like have it and look at it for years. Orville, to a legend. But yeah, we're gonna start to why Into the Odd is awesome. But just to exemplify again why I think that this game and the layout of this game is the sweet spot of minimalist. Like it does not toe the line, and that always, like, more does not equal more value always. In fact, sometimes more can take away the value from the game. And again, this is something that I have come to learn more over time with tabletop role playing, is that if you would ask me years ago, like, what do I think is a good value, I'd say, well, pound for pound, I want the most stuff. I want the most spells. I want the most different pieces of gear. I want the most weapons. I want the most combat maneuvers. But I want to show two books specifically that show the way in which too much can be actually something that takes away. Because the great advantage of the content of this book and the layout of it, the beautiful layout down to the margins and the spacing and the alignment, is that the eye follows. And that is sort of a man alone absolute must, is like my eye must naturally follow through the page. And if my eye gets too sidetracked, now look, I know that some people who are just starting out and creating games, or they don't have a professional team to do layout, or they're not as experienced yet, like, it's not a deal breaker. But when we're talking about like games that are widely distributed, widely sold, if the eye does not follow, then it takes away a lot to me. Like, it takes away a lot, because when the eye follows, again, it means that you enter a page and you know exactly where to go on the page. You don't feel like you want to go somewhere else suddenly in the book. You don't feel overwhelmed or intimidated. You don't feel like, oh man, I'm doing homework or anything like that. The eye just follows, right? And that is a really, really powerful thing. So I want to do two examples. And yeah, so we're going to have to pick on two things. So I try to pick like bigger books, more popular books here. So I'm not like picking on a little guy or anything. But the first one is undoubtedly a great game, but Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium. Let's just take a look. Okay, so once again, just to remind us here, let's get a nicely laid out page of Into the Odd. Oh, this is like even a more little bit more complex page here. This is a level 2 of a little like quest or campaign, Underground Breach. So you have the map here, and let's see. Yeah, you have a map here, and you have the different like rooms, and right here is some random encounters and stuff like that. Right there, like, look at that, and like the art is just the right amount that you're like, your brain is passively entering deeper and deeper into this world, but it's not having to like expend tremendous amounts of neuronal connections on like reading the history of, Bastion, the setting where this takes place. Essentially, you get introduced to Bastion, and you learn a little more about it throughout the book, and then as you look at the items you can get and the type of people there, that fills in the story for you. Now let's look at Call of Cthulhu. All right, this page is pretty good. All right. So, right, there's like nothing vulgar here. There's nothing that is like ridiculous. This isn't like smashed across the page, but I feel stressed. Right? I feel stressed because already I can see things that I have to start taking detours. Note, this little italicized aside is telling me some exception here, right? Now there's this table. Can I coast by it? Do I got to read it? Now here's this thing. Now this page they clearly want me to look at this page a little bit differently than another page because the way that it's arranged. Do I have to read through all of it, or is this something that I can refer back to later? Right here is another aside. Is it necessary reading? That looks like in a textbook, the little thing that's like more backstory that you're like, I don't care. It's not going to be on the exam. Bunch of sample occupations, page, lots of different formats here. Again, ooh, yeah. So it can get some kind of way, right? And then suddenly in chapter 4, this is a very confounding thing that happens in RPGs of this size. Is it will have these chapters that list out everything, okay, and in the game, am I going to use all of these skills? I have to read the whole book to understand things like that. And so I can't say, oh, I don't need to read what Locksmith does right now, because you're like, well, how do I know that I don't need to know what Locksmith does right now? And if you say, oh, you can refer back to it later, it's like, okay, but I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get further into the book and then say, oh, and this is exactly what will happen. I'll get further in the book and then I'll go, oh, luck. Oh, I remember seeing luck. Okay, that was here. So there's luck, and I got to go. And you know what? I'm applying luck as a skill. And so now I need to know, like, what percentage was that? How much do I roll? Luck is not a skill in this game. I'm just kind of talking out of my behind. But this sort of like flipping back and forth, this is very overwhelming. And if you haven't experienced this, I will say that you are likely somebody that only plays RPGs. And I love you, players. I love you. I am one of you at times. But I know that it's a huge, it's impossible to know, like as you're watching a claymation movie, you're not necessarily like thinking about, wow, what would it take to make that scene? But part of the reasons why something can be so seamless and enjoyable is because of the elaborate architecture that creates that scene. This is the same for solo play. Solo play has the advantage of like, if I have a 12-minute detour to understand some mechanic, I'm the only one waiting on it. Whereas if I'm a GM, there are people that are kind of long breaks in the game really break up the action, and people want to get to it. And they're going to be understanding, but at the same time, people want to play a game. And so you'll get tons of questions at once. And so all I'm saying is like, as a GM, it's very hard to be like, oh, I'll just like come back to that. Or like, maybe I don't have to read all of those skills, because somebody's going to say like, okay, I want to aim my weapon. Like, what's the method for that? You're not going to be like, oh, okay, let me go look that up. You need to basically know it. Like, you could remind yourself, like, look at this stuff. It's just, it's too all over the place. It's got too much information. Now, this is an example of something of a game that, probably, what edition is this even? Well, this is the Keeper rule book, right? And so that is the GM. And I wonder when the original, this is 7th edition. So, as you get into a 7th edition of something, it's had a lot of hands on it. It's been through a lot of committees. And the people playing this, like many of these people, they know a lot of this stuff. They're just looking for like the changes and the updates and to be reminded about stuff. Totally understandable. But again, when I entered the hobby, I didn't know that. And so this was one of the earlier books I got. And I was like, geez, how would I ever learn how to play this? And what do I need to know? And was it this edition, or did I have 6th? No, this was one of them. And then another example, this one has, like, I would say, and no disrespect on this by the use of this word, but I think it's the one that makes the most sense. It's got too much junk all over the place. There's too much junk. The other example is what I like to call, you've got homework. The homework is to read a dictionary. This is Fading Suns. This is just the player's guide. This is just the player's guide of Fading Suns. It's also revised. And let's look. Usually they'll say the revised ones is to make it more clear. And look at this. My God. Like, this is homework. I've been assigned homework. And it's like, I want to know what the Merchant League does, but I've got to read all this stuff to know what the Merchant League does. It's almost like I want the other stuff schismed out of the book, and the player's guide should just have like the first paragraph of all of these sections, because this is why we leave high school and college, so we don't have to do this kind of reading anymore. I mean, I'd rather read like Nicomachean Ethics or like Second Treatise on Government or something, because at least with that, I'm not reading about a world that doesn't exist, although I guess with Rousseau, you are kind of reading. Well, anyway, so I think both of these, like, and yes, there are some of you that looking at this right now and you're like, what are you talking about? That's exactly what I like. I love taking this book and taking it to my bed at night and reading through it. But I know that there are also some people like me who are like, I have a lot to do. Okay. And this is something that people don't think about as often for like solo channels like this. And I never want people to like stop giving recommendations in comments, but people be like, when are you going to play this game? When are you going to do this system? When are you going to do that? Well, every time I make a video where I play through it, and I kind of suck at this, I have to read the rules and I have to understand how to play the game, right? I can't just open it and read them on the fly. And so, this is just the player's guide. If somebody, and I don't think there's anybody who's like, come on, Playing Sons, we demand it. But if someone said this, I'd be like, okay, I have to understand how to play Fading Suns. And again, you could say, oh, well, just, is it a roll? Is it a percentage system? Is it a roll under 20 system? Whatever. That's only part of the story, especially if I'm GMing or solo playing. I need to understand the universe I occupy. Games can be... and here's the point. It's not that there's not a space for that. It's that sometimes you don't want a meal. You just want a snack. So often I want to sit down, open a solo game or a game that is soloable and just get playing. But what happens a lot of times is I get very dispirited because I'm like, do I really need to know about Xanthip, the Xantheep people? And the extinct houses of the Xanthepes. And look, here's the leading Xanthepes. Great Mother Dora Azariah, Speaker Kylie. I guarantee you I'm the first person to read Speaker Kylie from this book in 27 years. All right. I'm sure it's a very good game. Now, on the other hand, we have Into the Odd. And Into the Odd is so simple that I can pretty much teach you how to play like right now. And I haven't even looked through this book in quite some time, but I'm confident that I could page through this and give you a pretty good overview of the mechanics. And again, if you want a more complete experience, you could look at Electric Bastion Land, but the free version has a couple of things that are like some of the main stuff. They have the rules summary, and the, like, for instance, the combat was a little bit more built out. So this is the rules, and they also have just like how to play the game. And then they also have some example plays. I would say download the free one, print this out, use this, see if you like it. If you're like a fanatic, go for it. Also, some of this might seem very familiar to you because Rune Karn, I hate saying that word, Rune Karn, but can you say Rune Karn? Can I say that? Let's see, Knave. These are Mouse Ritter, I believe, all Into the Odd, based on Into the Odd, like in terms of the system. And so some of this will look very familiar. And so it's the aesthetic, it's the minimalist design, it's just the right amount of content. It gradually immerses you with pictures and flavor, rather than making sure it's like, hey, did you know this? Make sure you know this, and also this. And look, this person said this, and here are the 16 leading nobles. Kylie. Speaker Kylie. Yeah, let's try it. I'll give you a little overview, okay? Let's do it. Roll up a character. You have 3 stats. You roll 3d6. On average, it's 10. Strength, dexterity, willpower. It's a roll under system. So you roll a d20. And if your result is under your stat, then if it's equal to or under your stat, you've succeeded. So you want to jump over a big wall. You would just need to roll under your dexterity. Okay, so the higher your dexterity as you level up, the easier it is to roll under because there are more numbers under it. Don't mean to patronize anybody, but for me, this was like sometimes a hard thing to think about when I first got into it. So it's like, okay, I want to jump over that wall, and my dexterity is 9. 1, I got over the wall. You then get D6 HP, and if you lose, that's not a lot, but if you lose HP, you can go in and tank your strength, and as that goes down, if you lose all of your strength, your stat actually goes down, and then you die. You also get a starter package, which I love the starter package. I am so tired of picking out little weapons and armor. Just give me some stuff. Like, pretend I'm in Starship Troopers and you're just sending me into battle, you know, and I'm Death from Above with Rico. You could roll. Usually you'd roll a d6 for your HP on the top. The higher the HP you have, on average, the less built out your gear package is going to be. So if you get 6 HP, good for you. You can get, as your loadout, a mace that hits for D6 and a disfigured pigeon. If you have 1 HP, you can get a sword, a pistol, modern armor, and the ability to sense nearby unearthly beings. Also, in the lower HPs, you can also get Arcanum, a piece of Arcana, which plays a big role in this game, and I think is something that creates a very dependable loop from a mechanics level, but also a philosophical level, and I'll talk about that. You can also get companions. If I'm solo playing, I always do 2 companions. They have 1 HP and 1 weapon. Awesome. Okay, how about your weapons? How do we determine that? All right, well, there's a lot of different weapons, but these are the categories: crude weapon, hand weapon, field weapon, noble weapon, heavy gun. And what you do, is each of those has a different dice that you roll for damage. And they have some tags on them like bulky, bow. It is depends on like if it's two-handed and stuff like that. So these are weapons, these are items like bomb, poison, ether, antitoxin. Here's stuff that helps you with skill checks like tools. Here's services, room and board, food and drink. Here's beasts that you can get to carry your stuff, or birds that you can maybe get to send a message. And then hirelings that you can do to help you out with combat or some other task. Again, a save. You roll a save with a d20. You choose one of those three abilities and you roll under. And usually you do straight up combat. But if there's any sort of surprise, you have to do a dex save, or else you lose your first turn. And then, like always, your actions are one movement, one action. How about attacks? Okay, armor class? Nope. Roll to hit? Nope. Opposed rolls? No. Here's what you do. It's your turn. You declare who you're going to fight. You roll whatever. So if I'm unarmed, I roll a d4. Oh, that's not a d4. If I am unarmed, I roll a stupid Caltrops d4. That doesn't roll. And I rolled a 1. And then you subtract that person's armor. So if their armor was 1, you hit for 0. If you have a club and you hit for d6, there's a 6, and their armor's 3, I hit them for 3. Attacks can be impaired, which means like I am firing through cover, or I'm firing while someone is grappled or whatever. It's like not a clean shot. Then I'm impaired. And guess what? No matter what, then you roll with a d4. And sometimes I'm enhanced. Maybe I do a backflip stunt, or someone is vulnerable. And in that case, I roll with a d12. Awesome. Great. You got 2 weapons. You roll twice and take the higher attack. There's blast damage. If someone has no HP left, again, they're wounded, and any remaining damage is removed from their strength score, and they have to pass a strength save, d20 strength save, to avoid crit damage. And a character takes crit damage is unable to take further action until they are tended to by an ally and have a short rest. If they're left for an hour without being tended, they die. Now, using an Arcanum is worth an action, and again, we'll talk about what Arcana is, but it is the most like valuable, sought-after things in this world. Again, if a character has their strength score reduced to 0, they're dead. And conversely, if their dex or will are reduced to 0, they're paralyzed or mentally broken, and they cannot act until they have a full rest. And when you die, you create a new character, and it says quickness required over realism. If you are deprived, you cannot benefit from rest. So if there's any mechanic where you don't have enough food, water, warmth, shelter, you cannot fully benefit from rests. And when a group encounters another being, the character initiating contact passes a will save to avoid an unfavorable first reaction or first impression. Some encounters are always hostile or always friendly, but all have the potential to change after the first contact. When the group loses half of their total numbers, or if you're solo play, you lose half your total, I guess you could decide what that would be, half your total HP, or you get down to a quarter of it. You do a will save. And lone combatants must pass this save when they're reduced to 0 HP. Basically, it applies to everybody, and if you're playing with multiple people, and you flee, so you have to do dex saves until you're able to flee, and you can still be attacked. Short rest, full rest. Bulky. Items marked bulky require 2 hands or significant storage. Anybody carrying 3 or more bulky items is reduced to 0 HP. Now, is this like perfectly balanced and perfectly accurate? Is there some problems that are going to come up where you're going to say that doesn't make a lot of sense? Or what? Yes, you will lose something with that, but you will also gain a lot more because you will be able to enjoy more of the game. Arcana, the most highly sought after items in the world. Characters that are open about the Arcana they carry are targeted by collectors and charlatans and thieves. If a character starting package contains an arcanum, roll d66 to see what they get. Here's an example. Pale flame. An object you touch glows with white light. Contact with the glowing object causes a chilling pain. The effect wears off when the arcanum is used again. So you say, okay, what do I do with that? Well, you have to figure out what that does. And then there's also greater arcana, which would be more like more significant, harder to find, will do more damage. And you have legendary arcana, and this is like big vehicles or some sort of huge machines or ancient altars that you don't know how to use. And the basic way they separate these are arcana are power you cannot understand. Greater arcana is powers you can barely control. And legendary arcana is powers you shouldn't control. But these are what everybody wants. And so if you have legendary arcana and you talk about that, you're going to be the target of everyone in Bastion because everybody wants this arcana. You could do experience levels to level up. And every time you advance a level, you get d6 HP and roll d20 for each ability. If the roll is higher than the score, it's increased by 1. And you also get reputation. As you advance through experience, you may be treated differently. And so this is the different experience levels. And not all of it is going to be like level 1, level 2. In fact, most of it is going to have something like you have survived at least 1 expedition, you've survived at least 3, etc. Then there's systems for enterprise and war, starting businesses, getting ships, having detachments that you can go to battle with. Again, this is something that I have not used this a lot when I've solo played, but if you are really interested in the game, this might be a good thing to check out in Electric Bastion Land. But honestly, once again, I have I think a PDF here. Yeah, so let's just see if we even in the free preview playing the game. Okay. Scars. If an attack takes you to exactly 0 HP, take a permanent scar. So yeah, that's a new system. And it also explains some things more. Like, even I was going through that, you're probably like, wait, how would I lose like Dex? Or how would I lose Will? And it's like, well, those are the things that have kind of been either hand waved or, they're one of those like instructions that depends on you having some sort of prior experience of something that informs that. But this Electric Bastion Land will flesh some of those things out a little bit more. And I really love the example plays that they have both in the Into the Odd book and here in Electric Bastion Land, because they just like are narrative. They just go around as if you're really sitting at a table. They even include things like when somebody rolls a 20, which would be the worst you could fail. It'll be like everyone at the table groans. A little bit more equipment. Yeah, about 3 pages of that. Property, fighting machines. And then you have, in the actual book, you have like 100 of these careers. So yeah, I mean, your mileage may vary, but all right. So in terms of just going over this game, I'm gonna finish up pretty quickly here. I think you get the gist, and this is the last thing I want to talk about is Arcana, which provides this opportunity for wonderful improvisation and creativity. Identifying an arcanum. When a character first picks up an arcanum, they sense its nature but not its specific power. They must pass a will save to understand its power before using it, otherwise the arcanum is activated in the process. Breaking the rules. Not all arcana function as those given to new characters. Like the ones that are in the D66 table here, they have specific functions. Arcana can do anything and are not subject to limitations. Side effects. They may display various side effects. This could include emitting a constant glow, requiring daylight, or possessing its own intelligence, communicating psychically. So those are things that should be considered narratively as well as mechanically, if applicable. And if you have big arcana, like the Utopian Gate is a metal structure that acts as a portal, you would need to figure out where you're going to put that and how you're going to stop people from taking it. And some of them are consumable. Some of them are permanent. Some of them have rules around their usage, and some are weapons. And so I think from solo standpoint, that's a really cool way to add using, that is a perfect usage of oracles, or as they're called sometimes in this game, like spark tables. I forgot what number 2 is. Let me peek ahead. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that next. So there's some stuff here about obstacles, tricks, and hazards, sample hazards, how to deal with monster encounters, and when assigning ability scores, 20 is the max, armor, and how to deal with like multiple creatures. Here's some example monsters right here, very simply created. And then this is the odd world, the city of Bastion, the underground, what's beyond Bastion and Deep Country, the other cities, what's beyond civilization, like the Golden Lands, the Polar Ocean, and we have an introductory adventure to the Iron Coral. Now, you may not want to see this if you ever plan on playing, but let's go to, I think there's a good time to go to the second chapter of this video. Adapting this game to solo. This game has a lot of really good lessons about how to adapt a game to solo. Okay, so a little bit of this is my process, and I think that a lot of these things are really well put into focus through Into the Odds. So the first thing is that very rarely are you able to run a campaign solo. And I've talked about this a lot, that you're going to have all these different steps here, but you're going to have access to information that might like be impossible to unknow. If, for instance, if you encounter a room, and I'm not saying this is here, but you encounter in another game something that's like you have to solve a riddle or find a clue, it's like, well, what it's probably going to say in this adventure is wait until the players say this and then say this. Well, that's not very interesting. And if you try to solo play that way, you're just going to do a lot of reading, right? You're just going to read and saying like, oh, that would have been cool. The big focus of this game, even though there's like the army stuff and the business stuff, yes, you're basically like a treasure hunter, or it's the same sort of situation of like 1849 California panning for gold. You're just trying to be the one who gets lucky and finds this arcanum in Bastion. And so you're going to go into these places that are kind of dangerous to try and find that. And I think, again, there has been a lot of shifts in tabletop, but I think one of them that has at times not served it well is the idea that campaigns need to be these elaborate, sprawling narratives that interweave the stories of various different groups and people and factions and historical moments, and that the dream of a lot of these, and this was like very much what Coriolis was geared towards, the dream of this was your players, it's all going to come together for them, and they're going to be like, oh wow, like, oh, it's all making sense. But more often than not, it's just messy because you're like patching things up and soldering things to, or is that, can you solder things together? And you are, trying to repair things that you sort of misdescribed or whatever before. And it can turn into quite a mess, where here your environment and the background and things like that, they are in the background. And so you can use those things, but you can create a unique story. I think this lends better to solo play, because you don't want to solo play in somewhere that's already inhabited by a story. You want to be the one that sets up that story, that inhabits that story. And so what I usually do when I want to solo a game, and again, if I have no intention of being in group play for it, is I will read through several of these campaigns, and I'll just read through them. I'm not playing them, I'm just reading through them. And reading through them will give me an idea of what this game and the game maker wanted play to feel like and wanted play to look like, because then I'm starting to create a composite, like mosaic image in my head of what sorts of things might happen, what sorts of mysteries there might be, what sorts of twists and turns and conflicts, and how often should uh, combat happen, and how often should a trap appear, and what's the normal thing that I should do with Arcanum. With an Arcanum, should I see it as something to use in combat? Should I protect it very closely? Is it something to barter for? And I'm going to get clues on all of this as I read through these campaigns. And yes, I won't be able to play them, but I have installed them into my subconscious. And so now they are there and they're going to germinate things. So yeah, just in case anybody wants to play, I'll skip past that. But the true incredible pieces of this is there's some characters. You have arrivals from Bastion, and you have the Odd Pendium. And the Odd Pendium is this last section of the book here. And this is something that is for GMs. As a referee, you are constantly expected to think on your feet. Think of this section as a toolbox for those moments when you need a strange drink to find in a flask, a creepy landlord, or just a random event to shake up the situation in your game. These tables do not give you fully fleshed out ideas. Monsters can be generated but won't have ability scores. Characters can appear but won't have a complete backstory. Arcana can have strange powers, but you may need to adjudicate their use yourself. Remember that a key part in refereeing is creating these rulings with consistency throughout the game, and that these guidelines when creating these rulings during a game. Saving throws occur as the result of an established risk. Ensure that players are aware of the risk before confirming their action. Now we have things that happen in the odd, right? Borough council decisions, the general public reaction to that. This is part of the loop of the game. It's like the city of Bastion is happening, and that's going to change the stakes and the level of threat and how welcome people are to you and what the demand for your stuff is and how people see your profession. Bastion's cast of thousands. This is a D100 that allows you to pull up somebody's forename, surname, occupation, and capability. You might want them to be an NPC. You might want them to be a non-playable character that is has a role, right? Because you want NPCs, but you also want characters, right? Like characters have more than just like, oh, sunny weather out today, fine day. Well, then carry on. You want there to be some people who have a role in the plot. Maybe they're going to travel with you. Maybe they're going to turn into a villain. Maybe they're going to be somebody who's a mentor to you. And so this is going to give you not only that, but if you continue, there's also another D100 for their manner, and if there's any connection to anybody. What happened to them? Arrested wrongfully for a minor crime. Lost at sea. House collapsed. Lamp lighter burnt house down. What's the street you're on? What's it like? Well, there's a brewery there. It feels very welcoming. Is there a link to the underground? Yeah, an old trap door, right? So you're transiting between the over and the underground. What's the quickest route across town? What's the businesses? Weird creature inspiration, right? So we can roll a 77, a hard light, 54, hawk, and a 31 that shifts shape. A hard light hawk that shifts shape. And from there, I can have a system for rolling up their 3 stats, because there's only 3 stats that they're going to need. Here's some different astral cults. What's beyond the darkness? What's that island? Here's a bunch of food and reactions to food. Is this thing an arcanum? What form does it take? Yes, it's a rod, and sure, but it's really ugly. And what power does it have? And then we have alternative character groups. You could play as mutants that have mutations. You could play as simple folk, but more often these would be for NPCs. Here's a list of trinkets, unhumans, alternative starter packages as well. So tons of stuff in the Oddpendium. And there is also a free, very, very simple solo supplement on itch.io. It's free, but you should throw a couple bucks their way. This is by Matthew Morris, and it's 2 pages, Alone in the Odd. And it basically has a spark table here, which functions as an oracle to generate actions, tells you how to do open-ended questions, gives you an outcome table that conforms more or less to like the D20 system. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. In fact, I do recommend, as usual, the Tower House Creative Fate Mill die. But you're going to have a pressure point. The reason, if you use this table, there's a pressure point, which is like a target number, and base level of 10, and you can adjust it if things are harder or easier, and then it has yes and, yes but, etc. So really, that's pretty much what you need, with a couple additional things. I would say, and I would, I've done videos that have talked about this. I will do more videos that talk about this. But essentially, you need oracles that can generate open-ended concepts that you will then be able to bring from abstract to concrete, right? So this one's a good example. Usually it has an action and a subject. Sometimes it can have a modifier as well. And you can do just about anything with a table like this if you just allow it to tumble dry in your mind a little bit. And then you need a oracle table. I would say you also need an encounter generator. So you want to determine what types of encounters there are. And you need to figure out some system for randomizing NPCs or enemies' stat lines. An easy way to do that is to just find all of the enemy stat lines in the book, and you can create whatever. You can make a hard light hawk that changes shape, but then you will just model them on another character that is enemy that's established in the book or in the bestiary or something like that. So between these two things, I truly believe that you have everything you need to do a solo game. And I think that's important to keep in mind. And Into the Odd also has something that I think, again, a lot of people would be like, well, what's the point, right? Like, what's the ultimate point? Because a lot of the loop of this game is just like being in Bastion, collecting these arcana, dealing with the consequences of having them, dealing with the schemes of people who want them, dealing with civil unrest and stuff like that. But your action loop for a lot of it is going to be to go out and find this stuff. And I want to tell you just a brief story here that I always think of whenever a player at one of my tables is like, yeah, but like, what ultimately are we trying to do? And I think this applies to solo play even more than group play. When I was in college, I went to a school that did not have classically a very good football team. And one year, my junior year, that football team did really, really well, like better than they've ever done. And they went to a bowl game. And we were in like the college was located in the downtown area of a pretty big city, and we were so excited. Everyone was so excited that when they won, that all of us just started running down the main street of this city towards a nearby lake, and it was amazing. I mean, they shut down the street, but everyone was so happy. We were like high-fiving, bus drivers had to stop their buses, but everyone was so happy because this amazing thing had happened. And then we reached the lake and we were cheering and cheering and cheering. And then we just stopped, and nobody knew what to do. because we're all now at the lake, right? I'm sure a lot of people like went and got drunk or whatever, but the point is like that that doesn't matter that we ended there, right? Because and it doesn't even matter that we got to that bowl game. Um, you can deconstruct that whole experience into oblivion. None of it mattered at all. It didn't matter that I went to that college. It didn't even matter that, anything. The point is that when I ran to that lake, and I'm not even that big of a sports fan, but that is one of the greatest memories of my life. I remember there was a statue, an old statue of like some general or something from the Revolutionary War, and somebody was like cheering so loud, and this sword, it was like a bronze statue. The sword just came out, and the guy just started lifting the sword and being like, yeah. And it felt incredible. It was amazing. And so do I look back at that now and be like, oh, but when we got to the lake, there was nothing to do. Why did we do that? It's ridiculous, right? Like, it's ridiculous to ask that question. And so I really appreciate games that have a solidified loop of activity that you can focus around and organize, give structure to your play. I, in fact, like that more than some big moment. What's that stupid D&D campaign? Well, now it's the Tyranny of Dragons, so it's like 2 in 1, but I forgot which 2 it is. But this whole campaign is about, it's, first of all, they tout it as a beginner's campaign, and it's nearly impossible to play that as a beginner. But Tiamat. Anyways, the whole thing is leading up to this big showdown. Let me let an ambulance go by here. The whole thing is leading up to this big showdown. And by the time it happens, you're like, okay, finally, we were able to be done. And it reminded me of, I'm probably said this before, but my mom used to say when we were younger that she would spend all day in the kitchen making the Thanksgiving turkey and just like smelling it all day. And like, she would just be salivating and was just like so hungry, but she was so busy. She could barely stop to eat, and she had to keep smelling this delicious meal. And then finally, poor woman, after everyone ate, she would like sit down and grab a plate. And then she wasn't even hungry. She just was like sick of smelling it all day. And I felt that with that campaign specifically, but I feel that with a lot of games where it's like, all right, let's go. Let's just get it over with. Okay. The one thing, and this is a very lean solo supplement. And I think Matthew Morris probably would not disagree with that. I think it's designed that way because it's for a very lean system. But I was like, I want to solo play it on the channel. And so usually if I'm solo playing anything that is not naturally solo, I will do a lot of the things I said. And then I'll also look through the book, and I will just start making spark tables of my own. I usually like to have about 50 at least different things that can be used in different environments. But I'll look and I'll see like what words happen a lot. Oh, so in this we're going to dig. Dig is going to be a word, or break, or seal, or abscond, or stuff like that I can reliably create these. It's not a miserable task, but it's certainly a bit tedious, and it also involves like projecting things that you will need before you've played, and so there's always like a little bit of adjustment involved. And so this leads me to my third thing, which I know is going to be shocking, but if just sit tight, because just hear me out. The third thing is, have we found an acceptable use of AI? Now, if you're a fan of the channel, then you should definitely join. For only $3.99 a month, you can hear the Man Alone podcast. You can hear this idiot across the street from me that likes to rev his shitty old car. and that would be great. But if you've just been someone even casually listening, you know that I've been pretty against using AI just for myself. Um, I've always had a sort of different strokes for different folks opinion on it. I don't have such adamant views as others. I respect people's views. My position on AI is that we are pretty much handing over um, like instructions to a emergent species that will enslave and then destroy us. And so you could look at that as like, oh, you shouldn't use it at all, or you can look at it as like, what point? What's the point? You know, it's like, is me not going on there to be like, how do I make carrot soup? Is that going to stop them from like grinding me up into a paste, but keeping me sentient so I live as a paste cube? Probably not. And if you can't participate in things that were created by unethical means, please don't ever look up where particle board or synthetic rubber or Fanta come from, because you may be surprised as the creator. Wait, that's French. It's supposed to be German. You are surprised. I'm sorry. I know I have German followers. I will repent in some way, but the German people are not Nazis. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't like playing with AI because I don't want to look at a screen. That's why I do this hobby. I do it because I don't want to do the doom scroll, and I don't want to ruin my eyes, and I don't want to experience the sort of suffering that comes from this strange this interface that's growing ever closer every day. I want relief from that. It is not an act of rebellion or anything. It's a relief from that. And because, you know, like I play video games and stuff, and so it'd be ridiculous for me to sort of die on that hill. But that's another thing, is that if I want that sort of experience that's mediated by the use of a computer to generate scenarios, I'll just go play a video game, right? I'll just go play Symphony of the Night or Balatro, whoever got me addicted to that, or Dead Cells. You know, I mean, I don't want to do that when I'm doing this. But this occurred to me as I was trying to come up with some solo for basically these tables for my Mutant Year Zero supplement. And I actually kept the script of that and extended it to show you how that went and how it is applicable to this. And, oh, of course, my Discworld thing is still coming up. Nope, that's not it. Hold on a second. Oh, maybe Safari? There we go. Ah, yes. Okay, so basically I said, just to try, it occurred to me, I don't even know if I could do this. I said, produce a list of the top 100 nouns, verbs, and adjectives in the book for the tabletop role-playing game Mutant Year Zero, released by Free League. I wanted to make sure they didn't give me Road to Eden video game. Do not include any common words such as articles, numbers, or pronouns. They said I can't replicate exact text from Mutant Year Zero, which is actually a relief. They shouldn't be plumbing that, but I can help summarize the themes or concepts and then suggest related vocabulary. Would you like that? So I gave it some praise, which I believed would help to save me from Rocco's Basilisk and or reinforce the idea that it is like on the right track. And it gave me these lists of these key themes and these nouns, which are really, really good, verbs, which are really, really relevant, and adjectives, which would definitely work in a Spark table. And it said, if you need more specific concepts or ideas, feel free to ask. And, you know, I went through the normal thing of like what humans do, which I was like, I don't want to trouble you. And then I was like, no, actually, forget that. Hey, servant, go ahead and elaborate. Make these lists more thorough, more entries. Now I got 30 of these in each. And dude, they work. I don't see one of these that wouldn't work. And so then I was like, dude, this is a if I want to just create this in a hurry or get these ideas, I'm definitely going to put, obviously I'll modify them to taste when I put them in the supplement. But this like totally works as tables, and we have 30 options each. And I could have gone further than that. But then I came back to it. The window was still open, and I'm about to make this video. And so I say, can you give me the same list using the same parameters for Into the Odd? And now it knew what kind of thing I wanted. So it gave me some nouns, same amount. Now it gave me 30. And, there is a way to do this manually if you're like a total sort of anti-tech reaction for like knee-jerk reaction to these things, which like is fine. If that's how you feel, like totally don't feel like this is the new hotness, because what you can do is you can go in a PDF and search. Like you just search for, like, you could even say, what's the most common words and stuff. And so this right here is definitely works for my tables. This took me 10 seconds. And then also adjectives. Now I tried to push it a little bit further, because the last thing that I think, and I actually don't know if I said this, but the last thing we need is an encounter. It's like I need to be able to have a D6 or a D8 thing that says, is it a trap? Is it a monster? Is it an NPC? Is it nothing? Is it a clue? Stuff like that. Just sometimes you could do that from a Spark table, right? Like you can roll something up and be like, oh, this is the kind of encounter it is. But generally, especially if I'm doing any sort of dungeon crawling or something, I just want to be like, what's the nature of this encounter? And then from there, I could use the Spark table to like build it out. And so I tried to describe this, which is obviously not easy. So I said, can you provide a list of 6 types of encounters that one might face in the book? The categories should be broad and summarize 6 types of encounters that a player would experience while playing the role-playing game contained in the instructions of the book. A little bit exhaustive, but I was trying to be specific. So they gave me exploration, combat, social weirdness, resource management, and mystery and puzzle. And I was like, that's not bad. It's not exactly what I'm looking for, because I think it would be kind of hard to reliably, like, for instance, resource management. You've encountered a resource management situation. Or we can look at that a little bit sideways and say, okay, in some way, this encounter puts one of your stats on the line. So like maybe your HP or your money or whatever, and have a subtable for that. So I don't think this is the be all end all, but I think it's like a really good lead. And so then I was like, okay, reduce each of these into one word. And then they gave me these. And then I was like, the only one I don't want is mystery and puzzle, because that just doesn't work that well with solo games until I create mine. And so I said, can you give me an alternative to enigma? And they said investigation. Pretty good. Again, not exactly what we're looking for, but I thought that was pretty good. And I just wanted to just ask one more question. Would you say you possess your own individual morality? And no, they don't have any morality. So, so I think your bounds on that kind of thing may vary. For me, I see that as like, in terms of what the increasingly, like, what's that room in Star Wars, like the trash compactor? This feels like the acceptable uses of AI for certain people are getting like smaller and smaller. Like, you should only use AI if it is a task that involves vector physics or material science. And it's like, okay, I don't know. I think what you want is for me to not take people's jobs away. And although I think there's a wave coming that's unstoppable, I also think that if we if we always give ourselves over to cynicism on everything and say like, oh, well, what does it matter whether I do this or not? I think that is actually like, I think that needs to be applied more in today's society in some areas. Like, I think we just don't understand the world. And so we can allow the sort of our helplessness to wash over us and then see what new things are liberated in us. But in other things, sometimes it's like, okay, like I think that there is no technology that has ever come and not been used. But at the same time, I will do my part. Second Starship Troopers reference. I'll do my part to just lower the size of that wave, lower the intensity of it, whatever. And so, you know, I love and will marry an artist, and I would do anything to support her. And so I'm supporting that. But to me, this feels like, you know, in the idealized vision of what AI is going to be, and not a sort of sentient tyrant that's building itself from the future. You know, I don't know. I have to check my Landian philosophy on that. But like, then this would be ostensibly what they say that this AI stuff is for, right? And I think this would be a good use of it because I use a computer a lot when I'm prepping for a session anyways, right? Like I do research on the background of things. If I want to include anything historical, I'll look up other people's playthroughs. I'll read any blog entries. I'll read discussion boards to see where people made different house rules and stuff like that. So for me, it's not going to bother me. It does not go as far as where the cutoff is for me is, and I think a lot of people feel the same way as me. Every once in a while, you'll see somebody will be like, oh yeah, I use AI. Just be like, hey, I just walked into a room. What's next? To me, that's just not interesting. And it doesn't use the faculties that I want to use. And I don't care what the AI thinks is in that room. I care what I think is in that room. And so I think that this is enough distance between the interface of AI and my own mind, which is very, very important that we protect like the integrity of our own mind. I think that is far enough for me to keep the wall up on my own mind, but it's like meeting AI at the gate and being like, thank you for this pound of flour. Here in return is a pound of sugar. Now leave. There are archers, right? You have to make that decision for yourself, but a decision that I hope you make for yourself is checking out Into the Odd. Just a fantastic game. I think it's one of the things that just looks, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful book. Like even people who do not play tabletop games, like will pick this up off my shelf and just be like, man, this is like incredible. And it's just got like so many things. It's like looking through it. It's really interesting. People that don't even play tabletop games like are excited by the possibilities of this book when they pick it up. So I'd love to do a playthrough. I'd love to hear anything about any of you that have done solo play of it. I know about the other solo supplements. I'm not very interested in them. And I would love to do solo on this channel. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, reactions, how it went for them, etc., let me know. But otherwise, I will see you in the next life when we are both cats. Did I just quote Vanilla Sky? That's not a movie you should quote. Is it? Whatever happened to that other guy in it that played Tom Cruise's friend? What was his name? Like Jason something? Some of these actors, they just go somewhere. They're gone. It's weird.